This video goes out to all my Dennis Schroder fans out there, and especially those who don't speak German who have struggled to find English YouTube content about our guy, Mr. That's Tough himself. If you're one of those, be sure to like this video and let me know in the comments, and if you're not one of them, that's still cool, you're welcome to the channel. But let's get right into the video. As you can probably tell from the title, Dennis Schroder's path to the league was not a smooth ride. Before making it to the pros, Schroder had to deal with different issues. Doubt from his coaches and teammates, racism, and tragedy off the court, which was much worse than the tragedy he'd faced in the early days of his career when he had let's just call it a hairline fracture. But hey, he bounced back. As a kid growing up in Braunschweig, Germany, Schroder had many different interests. It is widely known that he was a skateboarding fanatic, something he picked up from his brother Che, who was a skateboarding star in the Braunschweig skate parks. Che had made a name for himself, and he even earned clothing and equipment sponsorships from a local skateboarding shop in Germany. Although Dennis was not as good as his brother, he had interest in skateboarding and spent most of his free time at the skate park. He had a reputation as the kid who did all the tricks that everyone was afraid to do. He said, "If we were somewhere with 12 stairs or steps and everyone was backing down, I'd jump every time." Something he admits to be too crazy for him to do today. And I read that sometimes he carries a skateboard with him in his car even today as an NBA player. Apart from skateboarding, Schroder had many other interests and skills, especially in sports. He showed promise and talent in all the sports he played, especially basketball and football or soccer, depending on what you call it. But I'm calling it football today because I feel like it, so deal with it. Basketball was not a common sport where he's from, but he enjoyed it and spent countless hours watching the old And One mixtapes. And one day at the park, when he was only 10 years old, he met a coach who stayed in contact with him. He also spent a lot of time on the football field, where he played and excelled as a striker and a left winger. However, growing up in Braunschweig, him and his siblings faced racism, and they dealt with it so much that they had trouble making any friends. I had a white friend, we were really close, and we still talk and went to school for 18 years together. But other people would say, "Look at him, he's black, he's got dirt all over his body," stuff like that. Schroder had to deal with this in school, but basketball provided a safe space where he could only be judged by his skill set, which was outstanding. He said, "When I started to get into basketball, then people didn't say anything. I still knew they didn't like black people, that they thought I'm different, so I just accepted it and went from there." It was actually from these experiences that Schroder's blonde hair patch comes into the picture. His mom encouraged him to embrace his differences from other kids, and she suggested that he dyes his hair blonde, but they later agreed on a blonde hair patch instead. This blonde hair patch complements his strong personality very well, the same personality that got him in a lot of trouble with his coaches when he was younger. When he was 14, he got an invite to a basketball camp with only 39 players, where the selections for the national team were to be made. He arrived at the first organized practice wearing his freshest fit, skinny jeans, a windbreaker, and Vans. You may not see a problem with that, but the coaches did. The head coach at the time, Frank Mentz, showed Schroder that he was not happy about it and that he was not a fan of Schroder's character or his swag. Dennis even said that the coach was not talking to him at all during the camp, but that's not the end of it. During the camp, players were asked about their goals, and 14-year-old Dennis stated that his goal was to make the NBA. And according to him, the whole team laughed at this goal and his ambition. His confidence was always mistaken for arrogance. At the end of the camp, when Schroder had not made the national team, the head coach said to him, "You have no future in basketball, not even in the first league." That's the head coach. On Frank's part, he said this because Schroder had an attitude issue. He did not know how to deal with frustration, so he'd quit anytime things didn't go his way, and he was even missing some practices. Nevertheless, these comments are still rude, and they fueled Schroder's grind because, as he said, those comments made him work even harder. Schroder and Frank Mentz were not friends by any means, but he had developed a relationship with one of the assistant coaches who happened to be the same coach he met at the park when he was 10. According to Schroder, he never discouraged him, but he let him know that these things would have to change if he wanted to make it far in the sport. He'd have to be more serious and determined. Dennis continued to play basketball, but he was still involved in other sports, and he felt like a time was coming when he would have to make a decision on what to finally focus on. He had a talk with his father about his future and what a career in basketball could do for his family, and his dad had been one of his biggest supporters, but he passed away from heart failure when Dennis was only 16. Not too long after the death, Schroder stumbled upon a letter his father had written about the conversation, and Dennis knew the decision he had to make. He put skating and football behind him and focused all his energy on basketball. With the help of a friend who would become his teammate, he got in contact with the same coach from the camp whom he had known since he was 10 and asked for an opportunity to play for his team. The coach was willing to let Schroder play if he was determined to show up every day and engage respectfully, and he made it clear that Dennis Schroder would not be allowed to play if he quit at any point. The coach tested Schroder's ability and his will so much that he brought Dennis to tears in his first practice. But Dennis did not quit because of the newfound determination his father's death had brought. He was attending daily practices after school, and because he lived in a small town, there wasn't much else to do apart from school and basketball. He put in the work. By 17, he was a pro in Germany, and he even won the Most Improved Player in 2012, and in his time there, he was also recognized as the best upcoming young star. He was becoming internationally recognized, and NBA scouts were coming to watch him play. He was invited to the Jordan Brand Classic, where he bowled out against Team USA, and he had put himself in position to be drafted, and he was later selected as number 17 in the draft. He's had a solid career so far. After playing 5 seasons with the Hawks, he was traded to OKC, where last year he finished second in 6th Man of the Year votings. And he's now in the Lakers, where he's in a position to compete for the title. My focus for this video was his story before the league, so if you care to hear more about Schroder's come up and his basketball career, be sure to check out this video, which is actually the only other video I found covering Schroder. And yeah, that's it. If you made it to the end of this video, be sure to like, subscribe, and comment down below Dennis Schroder's favorite statement. That's tough with a fire emoji and 100. But until next time, peace.